issues being compromised. We also had 3 different larceny investigations, as well as 1 robbery, which occurred at June 16th on a location on the MD in the area of Bradley Road, in which was attempted purse snatching. Suspects in a stolen vehicle drove past somebody, walked through the parking lot, tried to grab a purse. And we had a total of 4 stolen vehicles, and those all occurred during the month of May, 3 of which have since been recovered. I believe 1 is still outstanding. And moving out to the investigative services, cited my report, during the months of May and June, ISU assumed 8 new case investigations. They performed the processing and background investigations for 10 pistol permit applications and completed 19 public fingerprinting requests. Throughout May, they prepared and testified in the trial of their case against the first of the 2 suspects that were arrested for the Pease Road homicide that occurred in the soccer field parking lot there back in July of 2021. And police report that all the thorough investigative work that went into that found the suspect was found guilty on all charges, murder and robbery-related charges, and criminal possession of a firearm. And sentencing for that suspect is set for August 2nd, and the start date for the trial of the second suspect is still pending, so that should be coming up soon. And also, based on forensic analysis of some DNA evidence that the detectives collected at the scene of a Forest Glen Drive residential burglary, they were able to secure and serve an active arrest warrant, on the person responsible for burglary and larceny-related charges. And that's all I have on the criminal side, and the deputy will fill in a little bit on the traffic activity for the past 2 months.
In May, our department made 106 traffic stops. There were 22 motor vehicle accidents, 5 with injuries. June, we had 66 traffic stops with 23 motor vehicle accidents, 6 with injuries. And during both May and June, we had 12 criminal arrests in May and 6 in June. Our speed trailer was moved to several different locations throughout May and June, including Pease Road, Rimmon Road, Beecher Road, Seymour Road, North Pease Road, Baldwin Road, Johnson Road, and Racebrook Road. And we just completed a comprehensive traffic study for North Pease Road.
So that's,
I was just going to ask, as far as the traffic study was concerned, was there any findings on that?
Yeah, what we found is on North Pease Road, we had put the trailer, this new trailer that we were able to acquire that collects data at 3 different locations. And I'm going to have a comprehensive report here. Basically, with regards to Cornfield Road, vehicles traveling over the speed limit were 82% of the time, 82.22% of the time. We're traveling over the speed limit there of 25 miles per hour. On North Pease and Fairgrounds, we put the trailer there, and vehicles traveling over the speed limit also 82.85% of the time. And also North Pease and Center Road, traffic traveling over the speed limit was 81.81% over the 25 mile per hour speed limit.
Are there any traffic incidents, accidents, things of that nature that correlate to that, or is that part of the study that we'll be doing?
Not really. There hasn't been many accidents, if any at all. What we wanted to do is get a better feel for the traffic flow there when the high school was involved. We ended up getting multiple complaints from residents on North Pease Road. So what our plans are is in September or October, we're going to deploy the speed trailer again there and just compare it to the data that we have here.
further questions? Is there a motion to approve the activity report?
So,
Is there a second?
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimously, thank you. Next on our agenda is the report of the chief.
Just a few things to bring up to date. Regarding the dispatch center renovation, since our last meeting, the official town process pertaining to the construction aspect of the renovation of the dispatch center took place. The release of the RFP was on May 31st. On June 9th, we had a pre-bid meeting here. We had a walkthrough with several prospective bidders. And the deadline of the proposal that had to be submitted was July 5th. So that was done. They were opened, and currently the representative from the architectural firm of Silver Petroselli and Associates is in the process of reviewing the scope of work on behalf of the town with the company that was the low bidder. So we're optimistic that we're getting closer to that coming to fruition. I'll keep you advised of the next steps of that. On June 2nd, the Woodbridge portion of the law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics Connecticut passed through town. The Woodbridge leg went from Route 243 at the Ansonia Town line to Route 63 at the New Haven line, where they handed the torch off to members of the New Haven Police Department. We continued the run along with Sergeant Penelito, continued with them onto the campus of Southern Connecticut State University. It was a hot, rainy day that day, and I thank all of our personnel who participated and represented the department in supporting community event. And back in June, the Amity High School offers an internship program, and they do it every year at the near the end of the year for graduating seniors. It's called their Senior Service Learning Program, during which the students spend their final weeks of school at various career sites. And then upon completion of the internship, they return back to the school and they attend a presentation forum. They share different aspects of the job that they experience. So this year we were able to participate in that. We had an intern for 72 hours over a 2.5-week period. They spent time with our personnel in all the various aspects, patrol and ISU, records, dispatch, with the school resource officers. And we were happy to do it because over the last few years, because of COVID, our participation with that was suspended. So we're happy to reinstate it, and again, it turned out to be a successful endeavor. And the last thing we recently conducted a Stop the Bleed training event. It was held at on June 22nd at the congregation. B'nai Jacob. Sergeant Pedalino represented us at that event along with presenters and instructors. And the overall goal of that is to train and equip and empower the public to assist in a bleeding emergency before professional help arrives. So that went well, and we're looking forward to promoting future similar events moving forward.
Thank you,
And
Chief.
that's all I have for my report.
Is there a motion to approve the chief's report? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Carries unanimously, thank you. Paul? Next item are the personnel matters.
Okay, first an update on our extended absences. So currently we have 3 employees out on extended absences. The first is the workman's comp related extended medical leave absence that I told you about at our last meeting. That started on March 27th, and at this point that employee's return to date is still uncertain pending doctor's evaluation. The second is associated with an unanticipated medical issue that occurred on April 21st. That was also previously reported to you, and the duration of that absence is still uncertain at this point, pending doctor's eval. And the third is a new one. It's a workman's comp related injury which occurred on June 17th during an arrest, and at this point we know the officer will be out at least through August 10th. So, as I said before, these absences coupled with our current retirement vacancy continue to impact us somewhat with overtime and staffing challenges, but we're doing our best with that. Let's see. Regarding hiring, following our last meeting, we discussed our hiring process, so effective May 23rd. That was opened up to include new recruit candidates. Prior to that, we were just looking for post-certified candidates. We currently have no post-certified candidates in the works. And regarding the new recruit hiring process, the next round of regional testing is being conducted by the South Central Criminal Justice Administration, and that's set for, the written portion of that test is set for August 23rd. And then immediately following that, they'll start with the oral boards, which will participate on a panel on that. And there's several other towns that are, all participating and vying for candidates. So the deputy chief was able to get in touch with Post, and we were able to secure 2 seats at the Connecticut Police Academy. But the soonest class that we're going to be able to get into is the January 5th, 2024 class. So with that said, moving forward in the selection process, if the board agrees, our plan is to return to our past practice of providing a conditional offer of employment to the applicants being considered right at the onset of when we start the pre-employment background investigation process. By doing that, we'll be able to get back to being more efficient in the selection process, and we'll be able to give you a more complete and comprehensive report when we bring some applicants before you. We don't want to wait until later to do that because the candidate pool is very slim, and we don't want to prolong our efforts to complete our background check and lose viable candidates to other agencies. So that's what our plan is going forward. So as soon as that test gets completed, and once they go through the written portion of that, then they'll have the oral boards, and then the people could apply to whatever agencies out of the multiple agencies that are hiring. And so we'll get our list of potential candidates, and we're going to try to jump right on that and dig into it quick so we could move forward with that as soon as possible. So we'll keep you forward. I'll keep you advised as to the status of that at our next meeting. We recently received a notice of intent to retire, and that was from Officer John Calabrese. He's officially notified us that he'll be retiring October 2nd. October 1st would be his last day, so October 2nd would be in effect, and that'll conclude his lengthy and distinguished 16-year career with our department. Although he has just, over a couple of months remaining, I just want to make you aware of his impending retirement. That's going to be another vacancy that we'll have, and I'll wait for that date to draw a little bit closer before we formally recognize him. But just so you know, that's coming. And then the last one, I just want to notify, it's actually Officer Capazzo was here tonight, but there was an incident on June 7th at approximately 10:30 p.m. where police and EMS personnel responded to a residence on a report of an unresponsive person. Officer Capazzo was the first to arrive and was directed to that person who was laying on the ground, and he recognized the person was possibly suffering from an opiate overdose. He administered Narcan, implemented the use of the AED, started chest compressions until the patient regained consciousness. And because of Officer Capazzo's performance and prompt delivery of services, that patient survived the incident. And for those efforts, I have officially acknowledged his performance and dedication to duty with the issues of the letter of commendation. A copy was included in your package. So nice job, and thank you, Officer Capazzo, for that. And that's all I have under personnel.
Next item on our agenda is the old business SRO assignments.
So at our last meeting, we decided to address the current vacancy and the exigency of our staffing levels. And it was decided that it would be best to temporarily reassign the SRO from Beach Road School back to patrol at the end of the school year and then through August, rather than keeping him over at Beach Road School for their after-school and Woodbridge Recreation summer programs. After our meeting, that was back in May, after that meeting I met with Superintendent Kensa, and we discussed it a little bit further, and ultimately the school hired an armed security officer for the month of July while those programs are going on currently. Since then, questions and concerns have been raised by the Woodbridge Board of Ed about security at the school as we move forward and the new school year approaches. So, in respect to that, with the police department staffing having been significantly reduced by 3 positions over the past few years, and coupling that with our one current vacation and then the recent notification of the officer's intent to retire come October that I just told you about, we're faced with ongoing and considerable staffing challenges moving forward as we strive to maintain safe and efficient operations. It's getting challenging and a lot more difficult. Having an SRO presence at the school has always been our priority, but coupled with the reduction in staffing and the vacancies, the only option that I see remaining to possibly enable us to maintain the Beecher Road SRO would be to possibly cover our vacant patrol shifts at strategic times when we dip below 2, utilizing officers at an overtime rate and on a voluntary basis. There is funding in the salary line because we have the one vacancy that we've had for a while now, and there'll be the vacancy from the officer that retires in October if we don't happen to fill it by then with a certified officer. But the reality of it is that using the funding at an overtime rate, even if we were to do that, it's only going to be a temporary solution. Like I said, the applicant pool has been scarce, and the hiring and training of our new recruits is going to take several months. Once we get somebody, it's going to be 6 months in the academy and another 4 months in field training before they can even, be part of minimum manpower. So the problem we run into is if we do try to supplement it for a while, if these funds are depleted before we're able to fill our vacancies, we may be put into the position of having to pull the SRO after having them there just only for a few months. So it would be that would put into the midst of the school year while school's going on, which would increase the vulnerability at the school should we just pull out and they don't have another alternative in place. And that's not something that I want to be forced to do. So, the only options that I can see that we have is we could offer the overtime on a voluntary base to cover the vacant shifts temporarily until we fill the vacancies or until the funding's run out. The town could come up with funding to offer voluntary overtime for the entire year. I don't know if that's something that is possible. Or the school prepares to get an armed security officer in place, and then they're guaranteed that they'll have somebody throughout the school year. The reason we have to make a decision on it is that the school, to do that, the armed security officer needs certain training, and one of the trainings that he needs is only available once a year. It's like, I think it's August 23rd, but it's in the month of August before school starts. So that's kind of what they want to know is what they should do moving forward. So that's what I share with you tonight. So the impact, I talked over with the finance director. There are fundings in there, but they're certainly not going to last for a lengthy amount of time and a half. We'll start using all the salary and try to cover two officers now. Before we only had the one vacancy. But if the SRO is pulled from Beecher, the ramification would be, our budget is going to increase by $100,000+, and we're still only going to have 23 officers. We have 23 now, and we'll have to work with finance director to come up with the funding for that, we'll have to transfer the money for that. So that's just something I just want to share for consideration. And then also, I know we had some discussion about the Amity SRO as well. I mean, that's a whole different dynamic over there compared to the elementary school. So I don't, I definitely, I don't want to eliminate either one of the two. But the Amity one, it's a whole different dynamic over there. And if that position was pulled, the town, ends up losing like $120,000 in revenue if that's supplemented by the Amity board. That position is supplemented
Right.
by the Amity Board of Ed. So that's, that's where we're at. We left it off for discussion after the last meeting.
I mean, the issue with which agency, which town department, I should say, pays for the SRO, that's not much of an issue because it's kind of a shell game. It's either, it's the same pot. It's either the police department or Beecher. Like, I don't think that's something we should be concerned about. Providing overtime is great, it fills the slots, but it sounds like after a short time, we're gonna burn these guys out. And that's a concern that,
Right. And run out, and deplete the funds too.
well, the funds are not really the problem. The problem is the burnout, and that's not safe either, so.
But it's also a very expensive way to fill the spots.
Right, but, I mean, we don't have a lot of great choices. It certainly seems like we have to find a way to attract certified officers. We have to find a better way to do that. I'm not sure what that avenue is, but we can't rely on recruits because that's not gonna help us.
I just have two questions.
Right.
How is security provided at the junior high, the Bethany Junior High? Because they don't have.
They have arms security.
And so the training for the armed security guard is once a year. So they're training one person? So if that person becomes,
No, there's one mandatory segment of that that's just offered 1 year. There's several different facets to the training, but there's one that is available once a year.
so they're training one person. So if that person leaves, or then what do they do?
Well, Amity has
No,
several.
I'm talking about Beecher. Let's say Beecher
Beecher.
decides to hire an armed security guard. And you mentioned that they had to be trained by August 23rd. So they're training one person.
Yeah,
So what happens if that person leaves after 4 months, 5 months, 6
then
months?
they'd have to get another person or maybe an armed security guard that was already had the training if they able to find one. But if they were to get in someone that had not yet received that training, they wouldn't have the opportunity for that.
For that, yeah.
So,
And what's the objection from the Beecher School Board to having an armed security guard versus a SRO?
I can't speak on behalf of the board. I know I'm speaking with the superintendent, they would really like to keep the SRO in place. They like the SRO, they like the whole, not just the officer himself, but they like the whole concept of it. They like having a police officer there. But she understands, she also understands the constraints involved, that understands what I'm facing too, or what we're facing, the challenge, the staffing challenge. But they would prefer to have the officer, absolutely. But they also want to make arrangements. They don't want to be left with no one.
Can I ask, it seems that we're in a pretty urgent situation we're down 3 from what has been considered full complement. We have 3 people on extended absence. We have a retirement coming in October, and recruitment has been harder than it's been in many, many years. So in light of that, and I need to be educated on this, do we have a realistic option to hold off on assigning a Woodbridge police officer to the Beecher school under circumstances where Beecher could still otherwise provide for adequate security? Because I don't know the answer to that question. But it would seem that'd be an option that we would be wanting to consider under the circumstances.
I don't think it would be prudent to hold off on having an officer there. Are you saying if they couldn't get somebody in time?
I guess what I
They
don't
have
know
no
is, yeah, what I don't know is, are there alternatives for Beecher's security that would be considered safe and adequate, other than a Woodbridge police officer, like private security hired by the town? I don't know the answer to that question.
They have hired a private security guard.
Yeah, so are they, Would they be covered sufficiently, and is this within our mandate as a commission to proceed in that manner under the dire circumstances with staffing we presently face now?
I'll offer that, as the chief said, I know from the past, it's a sensitivity issue in terms of parents and the board, in terms of wanting an SRO, and wanting, for a lot of reasons, whether it's the individual, whether it's programs, whatever it is, as opposed to the security guard option. We've never been faced with what we're faced with now as far as resources are concerned. One of the things I would ask is, are there any other options from a resource standpoint from the police department? You know, there are other, I have to feel based on the circumstances, that those circumstances exist far broader than obviously around here. So what are other folks doing? Is somebody had mentioned per diem resources or something along those lines as a possibility. And certainly I know that the security guard is definitely an option. As you said, they're using it during the summer. But what I'm trying to understand whether we're saying we need to make a decision as to what we're going to do today, or we just need to make sure that they understand that it might be in their best interest to put somebody in the training in August, because I don't know if that's a commitment on their part or not. Do we have any additional information from their perspective in terms of what they're looking for?
I think they're looking they're looking for, to be ensured that they will be left with no one at one point or another. So that's kind of the debacle, that, you know, we could leave the SRO there and do our best to fill slots that we have. That's, you know, honestly, we've done that before when you know, there's one vacancy that we've had since, you know, that officer retired January 1st or whatever, so we've had 6 months or 7 months without him anyway, but he had been out a few months before that. And while school was in prior to this, we were able to sustain having the SRO there and having that one vacancy. And yes, we've had a couple of absences now, but even during that period, before these extended absences, we did have one. But we were able to make it work. We adjusted it, made it work during that. I think what's the challenges we're going to be faced with is now we're going to have a second. One made it difficult enough, and we were able to just about squeak by with it, but we made it work, hoping that we were going to hire and so on and so forth. But now we know for sure we're going to have 2 vacancies for sure, and it doesn't look like, you know, promising that we're going to get fill the other those vacancies very rapidly. You know, if we're fortunate enough to hire new recruits, it's going to take months. So.
Are there any options as far as police resources are concerned in terms of bringing resources in during a period like this?
No, other than bringing people in on overtime, no, we don't have the manpower to, and none that I know of, other than getting, you know, private security or armed school security officers.
If you were successful, to hire a new recruit,
Mm-hmm.
a non-certified officer, how long is it going to be before he's going to be in a car on the road?
About 10 months at least.
10 months.
From the point he's hired.
We don't have 10 months.
How about a loan?
The
Is
what?
another couple months after that?
A certified?
No, a recruit. We get him here in 10 months, but there won't be a loan for long than that, because they'll have
You know,
an FTO.
after 10 months, they would probably be alone. No, it's just, yeah, the academy.
That's
6
including
months,
the FTO
Then the
time.
FTO is another 4 months. Then after they complete the FTO, they'd be out.
Have you had any discussions with the union membership about the ability to deal with the extra time if it's paid on overtime?
No, I know I could offer it, but, you know, I know honestly, we've offered some voluntary overtime, and it's been going unfilled. So,
Right, well, then what happens if it goes unfilled, then what do we do?
if it's voluntary, then we just, you know, we wouldn't be filling the shift there, we'd be keeping the SR there, we'd be filling shifts.
No, I know that, but so what do you do if it,
Well, we'd be running the minimum to 2 men,
right,
rather than filling like for 3.
not a great idea.
That's what you said
That's the only
today.
option, that's the only option I can come up with. so
But
that's
that's what
what
you
I'm
said today. With what we know today, I mean, I don't see where we have any other option but to tell them to hire a security guard and get them trained in August. So they have security for next year. So you have the officer available. I don't know how you do that.
Well, if you want to guarantee that, if she wants to guarantee that, then that's fine.
Well, I mean, your staffing level keeps on going the opposite direction.
So you have 3 people out on medical leave, and then plus 2 vacancies?
We have 3, we're reduced by the 3, then we have 2 that are
And then
going
two
to retire,
either
there's 2.
retiring or-
And we currently have 3 out on medical leave, but anticipating that they'll be back.
But
We just don't know exactly when.
we don't know when. So I agree with Andy, I don't see the other option than being in the SRO, at least for this school year. I'm not saying it's permanent. It may not need to be permanent, but we're not gonna be able to fill those spots quickly, at least based upon past experience since I've been on the commission. Even with we're not gonna find 2 certified officers that can.
I guess an alternative, is there a way we can get a commitment from the union to fill those spots? The overtime spots,
But I
as
think,
opposed to pulling the SRO?
but if you're talking about filling overtime spots for a prolonged period of time, then you have to be really concerned about burnout and officer safety. So,
And
It's
expenses.
a tough choice.
even expense aside, I think
Right.
that if you,
I guess the question is, how much does the town want an SRO? And that's it's a tough decision, it's a impossible decision.
but you got the junior high has trained security guards. I mean, what do we do in Orange for the elementary school and the junior high?
The junior high, the middle school has, just like the one in Bethany, they have the Amity, one of their armed school security officers. And then Orange they have two people in their investigative services unit that do just youth services kind of work and community relations. And they circulate between the several grammar schools, the schools that they have.
Well, so they want SRO, they want security. I think they want security. They want security. They want an armed person. Okay, and I assume, is this a retired police officer
Who's that?
that is taking the job? That they hired? Did they hire a retired police officer?
At the high school?
No, at
No,
the
at Beecher.
Beecher.
Yes.
Beecher.
Yeah, so he's an experienced retired police officer.
It seems another concern is, we go forward into the fall, one never knows what the future holds in terms of what if another officer has to go on some leave or something like that comes up. When we're close to a possible knife edge, you want to be prepared. That's why, from what I'm hearing tonight, it does seem like at least the school department can hire and staff pretty quickly and make provision. But as a municipal police department, we can't, and that's the problem. So it does, I don't like saying this, but it does seem reasonable to say it's important for the town to prepare and be ready to have private security at Beecher this fall and winter. And if things turn out better, we can always revisit it.
Do we have any sense from the Board of Ed, your discussions with the superintendent as to what the process is and what the ability to, the length of time is to actually get somebody in there? If they go to training in August, school starts in September, do they get the person in September, or is there still some period of time between the time they have somebody trained and the time that you can actually put somebody in the school?
Yeah, I don't think that she really knows. That's why she wanted an answer now, so at least they'll have an answer in July, tomorrow.
And I got the sense from what you said earlier that they may actually be hiring someone who has already done that training.
They might.
No, they were pretty clear, I know, speaking, they were pretty clear that they needed to know so that they can get somebody in there, at least from,
So if that's the
from the
case,
information I
then
saw.
I'm concerned that they're relying a lot on one person who needs to do training in August, because that person may leave, that person may get
Well,
ill.
I think of it along the lines of, I don't know how many we have at the in Bethany at the junior high school.
I think they just have one.
One, that's what I thought, so I'm wondering if it's a company thing where it's one person, but, multiple people trained or something, so that if, I'm sure they take vacations, they get sick or whatever it is, but it's all questions, it's more
Yeah,
questions
that's
than
all
answers.
stuff, different aspects that they're gonna have to figure out, they're gonna have to make some arrangements if their person, just like we would do if we had the SRO, and he's out sick, we have other, procedures that we follow to ensure coverage, so.
But when we pulled the SRO, we did it with indicating that it was for the summer only,
Correct.
indicating that in September, they would have a resource. So, and I think what we're hearing now is we may not be able to do that. And that's very different from what we said before, so, or is it possible to, if there is some sort of a time period before which they can get a resource, can we accommodate through what you were suggesting to make sure that there's somebody there?
We could make sure that we have the SRO there, I'm just saying that the funds are going to run out on the other end. And when we had this discussion back in May, we were only aware of the one vacancy.
I understand.
And now that got compounded that we have another retirement that was, we were notified about.
Even bringing that SRO back is not gonna resolve your overtime problem. You're gonna still need overtime
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
to cover shifts and do what you have to do.
Yeah, but
Because you're bringing that one person back, it's not gonna solve your problem.
Right, we don't have enough, look, we're reduced to the point, we don't have any buffer to absorb multiple vacancies, to say the least. We're just getting by with what we have, so.
Without mentioning names, are you aware of any other possible retirements?
I mean, there's somebody that could retire in another 6 or 7 months, I'm not sure the exact date that's eligible, and there's been other, rumors and grumblings going
Right.
about of, people.
We should be
They
concerned
might
with that
be
also,
moving
because
in.
that's,
And it's, in Rayford, not, there's a lot of police officer vacant jobs at places, and that's why, they're kind of in the driver's seat of where they go. If you're a good officer, you have a clean slate and whatever, you have a lot of options available to you. So I think, like you mentioned, going forward, we really need to focus on retention and things of that nature to attract people and also to retain people here, invest in that.
If I could interject, one of our big issues is that we don't have anyone applying here. That if we had people applying here, we wouldn't be in this position, because we're gonna have a couple vacancies. Certified would be the way to go, so we can plug these officers in right away. Since Officer Monaco retired back in January, we've had no one apply. It's incredible. So we have to ask ourselves, why hasn't anyone applied here? We have to make this place more attractive. What's the reason? We have to find out what is the reason? Why isn't anyone applying to Woodbridge PD?
Is it specific to Woodbridge, or is it something that's?
It's more specific here, because other departments, larger departments, they're filling a good majority of their vacancies. A lot of departments are running with vacancies, but we're not getting anyone applying since January. So that's troubling. So when you couple that with this mandatory overtime that we're talking about, like this summer, as the chief said, our officers are getting burnt out. We can't fill the spots on the mandatory overtime. We're holding people over 16 hours at a clip, and they're getting burnt out. And what I'm afraid of is that some of the officers that are getting burnt out are some of the veteran officers who are going to say, look, I'm tired of being held over 16 hours on the weekend, every single weekend. Is it possible that someone else leaves? There's always those rumblings. And right now, we're kind of at dire straits.
well, that raises another question of recruitment, because if we're in a semi-emergent situation of having to really pull overtime hard and officers are getting burnt out, these things become public on the relevant grapevines, and people apply, so do you want to go to Woodbridge, you don't want to go to this place where it's a little more balanced schedule? Is that not a factor as well?
I would leave it.
It seems as if we should be able to ascertain if there's significant differences between our department and another department, neighboring departments similar to ours. I mean, wondering if we have the data to help us determine if there's action we can take along those lines, to either make it more attractive for, or understand, or at least understand what may be the cause of that particular problem. If it seems specific to Woodbridge. I had really thought that it was something that was more statewide, because I've heard other folks say that there seems to be a shortage in terms of
There's definitely a shortage in applicants for the job, then, you know.
not
the
just
testing-
here.
Not just here, but when you have your pick, you know, people are looking at who has the best benefits, who has the higher salary, who has the more opportunities for different things within the department, and so on and so forth. So those are the things I think that feed into where people apply to. There's variable factors, but we could get that all, and that's some of the stuff I think we have to probably just going forward also in.
Considering what we would spend in overtime, I mean, we could potentially apply those to bonuses. There's other, we get creative in terms of how you get people, at least get their attention in terms of trying to get them in, if that's what we need to do. I guess just how do we define that? How do we determine what we would need to do?
I think we had a lot of that. I think over the years we've had, for one reason or another, and maybe the economy and all, but we lost a lot of that. And that's kind of some of the stuff we kind of have to get back going in that direction, I think.
So regarding SRO assignments, which is the old business, what is the ask of us? Are you asking for, what's the ask of the commission? What are you asking us? Are you asking us, should?
I'm
do
just
need a
telling you that,
motion to-
we're not, I could fill the job with, we could keep the officer there, but I'm gonna have to pull him out. I don't wanna have to pull him out mid-year and leave the school vulnerable, so I'm gonna have to tell the superintendent, here's my option. I have funds, I could leave him there possibly and try to offer some voluntary overtime a little bit and see if anyone takes it. But I don't think that's going to work, and I don't have to pull out mid-year, and I'm pretty sure they want to be assured that they'll have somebody there year-round, and I can't assure them of that at this point with the staffing level that we're at. So I imagine they're going to move forward with our school security.
So I guess my question is, do you need a motion from us regarding SRO assignments, or is this just a information discussion?
It's up to you if you want to make a motion. I mean, I have funding to offer voluntary shifts, and I can leave the SRO there.
But you're telling us that the officers are not filling those, they're not
I
voluntarily
can't guarantee that they're
filling
going
those
to
shifts
fill it.
because they're
Some
already overworked
have
and.
going unfilled, yes.
Yes.
When do you need an answer?
I'm sorry?
When do you need to provide an answer to the teacher?
As soon as possible, but there's no set time.
Is this something we should consider having a joint special meeting with representatives of the Board of Ed so that there's an understanding and a complete decision made with the stakeholders involved? What do you think? And I know it would have to be done very quickly,
Right.
but
I mean,
That-
our
that
prime
we
job
should-
is to make sure that we have the road coverage and we have people on the road to go. We want to accommodate Beecher as well. I'm just saying, we're not going to be able to accommodate both at the level of staffing that we have now
So it seems like our
for
primary.
much longer. So for a little bit, but that's it. And when that runs out, we're, you know.
So if Beecher has a viable alternative that they are satisfied with, and our primary responsibility is to have the road coverage,
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the question is.
No, if they have a viable option and they want to go with it, and that
And we're making
they'll
their
be
lives
guaranteed
hard.
that they have coverage, then they probably should to do that.
As I think we're making their lives harder if we drag it out. Because they need time to hire a person, a responsible person that they're comfortable with.
Well, I can have a discussion with her tomorrow, and just like we had, and I'll let Sharon know.
It seems like we're down in rough slots.
Scheduling-wise, it may be easier if we just did a joint meeting by remote, because that's probably a little bit easier for schedules for everyone. It probably makes sense to have their input and see if they're willing to, if that's not gonna, for some reason, that's not gonna work for them. I mean, it sounds like, I don't wanna shove it down their throats, if that's something that the board's dead against as well.
They hired security guard, how is that working out for them now?
I haven't heard.
It's just a summer
I haven't
program,
heard
so it's
any
kinda hard to
complaints
gauge that.
Well, but, I mean, he's there, they have a
Right.
security guard there, who is a retired police officer, and he's, experienced in training. I mean, can we find out how is that working out for him? Because that would be the alternative, huh?
We have a joint meeting, we can ask them,
We should ask him.
let's do that.
Additionally, it is, in the past, it's been a very, very sensitive issue, and I think things have changed, and obviously they certainly have changed from the police department perspective, so everything's in a different situation, and people might understand in a different way than in the past, but I think you've probably been engaged in some of the discussions that
Yes,
they've had as
absolutely.
relates to the SRO. So it's, it's not a cut and dry necessarily.
Right, so that's kind of why we're trying to tread delicately with it, but we're trying to cover both the best we could, but like I said, the superintendent understands the dire straits we're kind of in there as well.
But it probably makes sense for the board also to understand that as well.
And it's a smart decision to make sure that if there's a deadline in August, that they take action. They understand that they should take action because if anything else happens,
Right,
we're in a situation where we can't maintain the SR.
right, and just
Basically,
as we kept the SRO there through the end of the school year, I would keep the SRO there until they could make other arrangements, just won't leave them.
It sounds like the deadline may be before August, because the training is in August.
Right, it's now, we have to do this
Deadline is
immediately,
Yeah, I
approaching,
agree.
so.
yeah.
So do you want to, what do we want to do, have a joint meeting with
Yeah,
them?
let's see if we can arrange that. That's just think of what we may accommodate people's schedules in the summer easier than trying to get everyone in a room.
But it's clear that the communication would have, as you said, you'll call the superintendent and say, if you need to make arrangements, you should.
I think you should have the informal discussion with her first. You should talk to the superintendent, find out where she's at, and we move from there, and then move from there.
I'll talk with her tomorrow, she's aware of the situation.
And then
She's waiting up tonight.
and we can have a special meeting, both board and commission, and resolve it. We don't seem to have a lot of time to resolve this.
Nope.
We're running out of time.
Okay, so, next item is new business. Nothing? I wanted to thank.
So there's no, I'm sorry,
That's right.
excuse me, I know we made a motion in terms of pulling the SRO. Right
Right.
now, we don't need to make.
No, because we're not doing anything, I'm not acting yet.
We're not gonna do anything.
No,
Need
we went
talks.
back in May.
Oh.
It was just limited to, we limited specifically just the summer, leaving it open to see what would happen. And I'm glad we did, because now it gives us flexibility to make that decision. I wanted to thank Officer Capozzo for his service, but he just left.
Oh, you have a call?
That was really an outstanding job, we're fortunate that he was able to act.
He's had, believe it or not, he's had quite a few of those.
Really?
He's a DRE, drug recognition expert, so he's pretty right, he's very good at that, he's spot on usually, and for him, he's had so many, it's like second nature, he does it
It's
like everyone else is, it's a little bit more,
impressive.
very good with it, yeah, very, absolutely.
Our next item is personnel matters, executive session. So it is now 7:11. We can ask everyone to step out of the room, and if you can shut off the videos now. Is there a motion to move into executive? It is now 7:23. We are back from executive session. There were no votes taken during executive session. The only item that we dealt with was a personnel matter regarding an officer whose name will not be disclosed. He was invited prior to the meeting to attend. as required by law, and he declined an invitation. I was advised by the chief. Prior to coming back into session, I had asked Janice to inquire outside whether anyone wished to be heard as a second round of public comment. There was no one.
No,
Um,
we just have the one gentleman here that's waiting.
Is there anyone that wishes to be heard regarding business of the Board of Police Commissioners? Seeing no one, last item is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Welcome to the Woodbridge Traffic Authority. It is now 7:24 on July 17th. First item on the agenda is public comments. I apologize for making you wait, it's just how our agenda was designed today. Sir, if you could state your name, and if I could just make a note that public comment is, when it comes from public, we can't respond to questions, or we'll make any response to your. So, if you could state your name, your address, and state what you'd like to tell us.
Good evening, everyone. Javier Aviles, 45 Ansonia Road. Chair Burke, officers, members of the commission, I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak tonight. Dr. DeCia, I'm particularly happy to see you tonight because my daughters and my wife would like to thank you so much for the water play that they very much enjoyed this weekend. So thanks again for that. Members of the commission, I'd like to approach you this evening with concerns about the traffic, specifically the posted speed limit on Johnson Road between Ansonia Road and Rimmon Road. It's a quarter-mile stretch of road that many people use as a shortcut through Woodbridge. And I brought actually a statement on behalf of all of the residents, a very short statement, don't worry, of all the residents of that road, and I'd like to read it if you'd allow me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we, the residents of Johnson Road between Ansonia Road and Rimmon Road, would like to thank the Woodbridge Police Department for their increased patrol of this quarter-mile strip of road. However, when an officer is not present, the drag strip nature of the traffic returns. In large part, we think because the speed limit on this street is 35 miles per hour. It's difficult to understand why the speed limit is so high on this short road, when Orange dictates that the uninhabited portion of Dogwood Road has a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and further reduces it to 25 when the road reaches the populated area. A similar oddity exists on Baldwin Road, as Orange dictates a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on their portion, but as soon as Baldwin Road enters Woodbridge, the speed limit increases to 35 miles an hour. We humbly ask the Traffic Commission to reduce the speed limit on Johnson Road to 25 miles per hour, as there is barely enough road between the stop signs for anyone driving at a normal pace to reach higher speeds without doing so dangerously. And what I've done, members, I've brought these statements of support from every single resident on that road. I've also brought a couple of exhibits that kind of add some context to what I'm talking about. This is the portion of Johnson Road when it's Dogwood, and you can see Orange has a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. When it becomes the wooded area, it goes to 30, and then the rest of Johnson Road, all the way until it gets to Pease, is 35 miles an hour. I'll highlight that the smallest portion of Johnson Road between Rimmon and when it turns onto Pease. I would challenge all of you to drive that road at 35 miles an hour and see which neighbor's lawn you wind up. And it's very, very sharp curve. So that's something else I kind of wanted also to highlight. So, something I've also, and by the way, these are all my personal observations just driving across Woodbridge. What I've noticed is that this strip of Johnson Road, which is what we're talking about right here, is one of the only streets in Woodbridge that has a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. The other ones being Beecher Road up here between Rimmon and Center Road, Northrop Road, and I believe those are actually the only ones that aren't state roads that have such a high speed limit. And it's difficult to understand why a quarter-mile strip of road has this high of a speed limit. It's very, very dangerous. Now, it's summertime, everyone's kids. Right now, I have one of the neighbor's kids at my house playing, and they walk up and down the street all the time. One thing I did want to highlight as well is that I brought this concern up before. Chief Cappiello and Deputy Chief Smith have been awesome and gracious in their responses to me. They actually had a traffic study done. This was about 2 years ago, so I think it was early 2022. And in that study, Deputy Chief Smith sent me the results. In that study, 85% of the motorists on this strip of road were going over 40 miles an hour. and his comments in there indicated that a reduction in the posted speed limit to 30 could be warranted. So in light of everything that I brought to you tonight, and in light of the labor shortage that unfortunately we're going through, we certainly don't want to be any more stress to the town and law enforcement. So we would humbly ask you to reconsider reducing the speed limit on that very, very short stretch of road.
Chief, did we ever address this as a commission?
Yes.
And we
No,
heard,
no, we do not address changing the speed limit specifically, but we addressed enforcement action there and some traffic calming efforts in the study that the deputy, that the gentleman,
As a matter of
probably already
fact,
referred to it.
yeah.
in,
We have another, someone else from Johnson Road in between Rimmon and Ansonia just reached out, and we are gonna put our new trailer there too to get some, better data than what I provided to Mr. Viles back in 2022. So we
with
have
that-
plans in, I think it's in early August.
so with that data that may come to us as
Yeah,
for consideration of a
Absolutely,
modification? Okay.
we're planning on, I believe, early first or second week of August, doing another study.
Okay. So it sounds like that will get around to us after, once that study's done, and then we can have another hearing and, make a decision on whether that should be changed.
Very happy to hear that, and thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Thank you for the
Do you want
presentation.
these
Thank you
back
for
before
coming.
you go? Do you want these back?
No, not at all.
Javier, could you just give me one moment?
Sure.
I want to make sure I have the spelling correct.
Okay.
J-A-V-I-E-R.
Uh-huh.
And then E-V-I.
I try. I keep a tight ship, I try to move things along.
Have a good evening.
Let me comment, I try. No, you're not. Okay, moving right along, traffic matters, North Peace Road.
On May 2nd, I received a request from a resident on North Pease Road regarding the possible installation of speed humps on both North Pease and Rice Road as a traffic calming effort. On May 19th, we had a meeting of the traffic committee to which the resident was invited, and he did attend with the deputy chief and myself and representatives from the traffic committee. As the deputy chief reported to you during our meeting, during our report, earlier in the regular portion of the meetings, a speed trailer was deployed to allow us to get some accurate data. And moving forward, as we said, we're going to do it again in early fall when school commences to get a true representative sample of what's going on here and to assist us in making an informed decision of how to best proceed with that.
Now, this is North Pease, Rice Road. Are we concerned about high school traffic leaving and speeding there?
That seems what,
That seems to be what the issue is.
yeah, more so than the normal traffic. But, so that was a concern of the resident, that we get a representative. He came in May, school was just about ready to conclude, so we want to get a true representation of what's going on there. I just want to update you about a Connecticut DOT project that's going to be going on. They're going to be doing upgrades to the pedestrian crosswalks on Route 69 at both the Lucy Street and Merritt Avenue intersections. They're going to replace all the current signalization pedestals with new equipment to upgrade them to federal standards, to try to ensure compliance with that and reduce injuries. And we received a request actually from a resident who was a member of the Town Trails Group about the possibility of relocating a Pease Road pedestrian bicycle safety sign to make it more visible and effective. There's several of these signs that were placed at various locations around town on Beecher Road and Pease Road, to name some of the roads. They're designated as bikeways and were funded by a federal grant. It was something that Betsy Yagla had coordinated a few years ago when she was here. So on June 28th, I went out and I met with the resident. There's currently 2 of these signs on Pease Road. They're currently working with Eversource to have both ends of the trail maybe relocated. So after we met, the decision was that it'd be best not to move the signs until they know exactly where they're gonna change the exit and the entrance to. And I already talked to Warren at Public Works, and once we get that information from the resident, we'll take care of moving the signs to make them efficient. And there won't be anything that you have to take action on. And the last thing I want to just update you on, I had mentioned in our meeting that through an urban speed feedback sign program that was funded by the Connecticut DOT, we acquired 2 free electronic speed signs for the town, similar to the ones on Beecher Road and on Newton Road. And both of those signs have since been installed and they're fully operational. One of them is located on Baldwin Road, between the Laurel Road and Greenway Road as you're heading down the incline towards Orange, where you can get a lot of complaints. And actually, we got a lot of feedback from people that they're happy that we got that there. And the other one was put up on Johnson Road near the Route 15 overpass, clocking people as they head towards the T intersection at Woodford Road. So you know, that project's done, they're up and they're running, and that's all I have for traffic.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
One question, Frank. Has anybody complained about the stoplight at Lucy and Litchfield Turnpike?
Not cycling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a malfunction with it just, I think it was Friday.
Friday.
Yes,
But it's happened
DOT
2 or 3
came out
times.
and they came out, and I think they actually had to come out twice, but they
It's
corrected
go
it,
through
yeah.
that. Because it really backs traffic up.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday of last week they did, but they,
I mean, they
They
go
came
right
out-
through the cleaners, they were going through the cleaners, and I'll tell you what, I happened to be
there
there.
was some
that
sort of a
day.
malfunction with their system, but they took care of it,
And the Pease Road pedestrian bicycle sign relocation, is that the resident who,
yeah. Yes,
David,
that's
they're
the
aware of it.
email. Yeah, I went out and met with him, and he was
Thank you.
very, he was glad that we took care of it, and very receptive to our response and how we're gonna work it out. So we're gonna wait to hear back from him, and then we'll take care of it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Good night all. Thank you.
Thank you all.